Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back, and let's get right into Black Myth Wukong. First off, one of the biggest things players were complaining about before this update was performance inconsistency, especially when using Super Resolution. On paper, Super Resolution is supposed to give you smoother visuals without tanking your frame rate, but for a lot of people it was doing the opposite. Some players noticed stuttering, others saw outright drops in performance, and a few even mentioned that changing graphics settings would break Super Resolution entirely. You'd set it up, hit recommended settings, and suddenly it just stopped working like it was never enabled in the first place. This update finally addresses that. Super Resolution now behaves the way it's supposed to, reapplying correctly after changing settings and no longer dragging performance down. If you're on PC especially, this is one of those fixes that you'll feel immediately, not just see in patch notes. Another thing that's been cleaned up is environmental behavior, and this might sound minor, but in a game like this, immersion matters a lot. There was a strange issue with water in the Heart of Birthstone area where physics and visuals didn't line up correctly. Players were reporting water reacting oddly, sometimes not behaving like water at all, which pulled you right out of the experience. That's now been fixed, and while it won't suddenly change how you fight bosses, it absolutely makes exploration feel more grounded and polished. Snow interaction also got some attention, and if you've spent time in snowy regions, you might already know what I'm talking about. Footsteps, movement effects, and environmental reactions weren't always triggering properly, which made some areas feel stiff or unfinished. The update smooths that out, so snow now reacts more consistently to movement and combat. Again, not a flashy change, but these are the kinds of details that separate a good action RPG from a great one. There was also a very specific but nasty crash tied to using non-white spirit in the Hut of Immortality. If you were unlucky enough to run into this, the game could straight up crash on activation, which is brutal when you're deep into a session. That issue has been fully resolved, and stability overall seems improved across the board. Fewer crashes, fewer random freezes, and better consistency during longer play sessions. Console players have also reported smoother performance, especially during intense fights with lots of effects on screen. Something worth mentioning is how this update affects mods, because if you're on PC and you've been customizing your experience, you might notice that some mods stop working or need updates. That's pretty normal after patches like this, especially ones that touch rendering and performance systems. It's not a knock against the update, just something to be aware of if your game suddenly feels different or certain tweaks no longer apply. What really stands out to me about this patch is that it's clearly focused on refinement rather than content. There are no new bosses, no new areas, and no flashy additions, but what you get instead is a cleaner, more stable version of the game. Combat feels smoother when your frame rate isn't fighting you, traversal feels better when environments react properly, and overall it just feels more reliable. That reliability matters a lot in a game where timing, precision, and visual clarity are everything. If you're the kind of player who stopped messing with graphics settings because it felt like nothing worked quite right, this is the update that makes those options worth revisiting. And if you never ran into any of these problems, you'll still benefit from the under-the-hood improvements that make the experience more consistent from start to finish. All in all, this update feels like the developers listening closely to player feedback and quietly tightening the bolts. It doesn't scream for attention, but once you're back in the game, you can feel the difference. Everything just runs a little smoother, reacts a little better, and stays out of your way so you can focus on what really matters: mastering combat, surviving brutal encounters, and soaking in the world they've built.